Hi, Mary Sherwood Savinsky. So happy you could join me today. This is the first of a series in the nuts and bolts of interviewing, what you absolutely need to know in order to be successful in your next interview. If you join me for the other sessions, you might have learned some of the soft skills that you need. And those are some skills that not a lot of people are talking about, and just kind of assume that you have the skills that you need even to practice interviewing, but you may not. So if you haven't viewed that series on interview soft skills, you might want to look that up. There'll be a link on the slide share that I'll post along with this on my YouTube site that you can access so that you can go back and check that series out as well. But as I said, this is the first in a series of interview tips on the nuts and bolts of what you need to be successful in interviewing. A little bit about myself. I'm an occupational consultant. I have an online blog, jobsearchfortherestofus.com, and you can find a lot of free resources and information there. I hope you'll check that out. I also write for Examiner.com and Careerealism.com. Hard to say, but a great site. Careerealism.com. So I hope you'll check out some of the articles I have posted on those great sites as well. They're sites that are geared towards career advice, at least in part on the in the case of Examiner.com, but certainly completely in the case of Careerealism.com. Let's see. I hope that you'll, like I said, take advantage of the free resources that I have online. But if there's anything that you think I can help you with, or you're not sure that I can help you with, just shoot me an email at lifeworks@mail.com, and I'll be happy to get right back to you. If I can't help you, I might know somebody who can, or be able to point you in the right direction to a site that you can access for more information or better information if I can't help you. But I'm hoping I can. Just shoot me an email, lifeworks@mail.com. So let's go ahead and get started here today. The first tip that I have, and you know, it goes without say, I guess almost. It's probably what everybody thinks of when they think of interviewing, and that's practice the common interview questions. But there really is a little bit more than meets the eye when we talk about practicing common interview questions. So I hope you'll stay tuned and not just turn off at the very mention of practice common interview questions, because you've heard it all before, you've done it all before, you're already doing it. I have some good solid tips and recommendations for you on how to actually go about doing that. And you really want to go ahead and practice those ahead of time. Practice the common interview questions. Practice, practice, practice. The more you practice, the more common, the more confident you'll be. So that really does help. Don't wait until the day before an interview, certainly. Don't even wait until you have an interview scheduled. If you're job searching, start practicing the common questions right now. Of course, as soon as you get an interview, you're like, yay, my job search is over, I'm going to get a job. And hopefully that will be the case, but you just never know. And certainly, again, you don't want to wait until the very end of your job search to practice interviewing. You should be doing it alongside of your job search as you go along. So please make sure that you do that, and if it's too late and you are practicing or reviewing this the day before an interview, please listen closely to how to practice the common interview questions, because it will still help you, but I wish you'd started a little bit ago. Let's see. What you want to do is, first of all, understand how important it is that you write down the answers to your interview questions. And I know often my clients initially will not actually do this, and I can always tell because they will make the same exact mistakes between the first practice and the second practice. They might change the words a little bit, but they didn't get the point that I was trying to give them, and they didn't go back and edit their answers and then practice the edit and then edit further, so that they're actually improving upon what they initially answered. And that's the main reason why you want to write down your questions. Not only that, or your answers to the questions, when you write the answers out, it helps you to remember and to focus on the answer as well, so that it will really help you remember what you are answering also. So don't try to cheat. Actually write down the answers to your questions and answer each of them that way. And then you can go back and try to practice answering them out loud. But first, write them down, edit them, see what makes sense to say in answer to the actual question. Also, before we actually talk about practicing the common interview questions, when you answer the questions, keep the STAR method in mind. If you haven't heard of the STAR method, I'm going to tell you a little bit here about that, and I'll give you a link again when I post this online. It'll have a link to a full article on the STAR method, but in short, it's a situation for S, T for task, A for activity, and R for results, so that you're presenting a balanced and objective, concrete answer to the questions that you're being asked. Now, you're not going to be able to apply that method to every single common interview question, but as you're writing those answers out, that's what I want you to keep in mind, if at all possible, to use that STAR method. And we'll talk a little bit about that right now for you. Situation, you want to give, in terms of the situation, a context to your story. So think of your answers in terms of you're telling your overall story of who you are and why you're the person for this job. So you would say, for example, in terms of a situation, you would say, well, we were due to deliver a presentation to a group of 30 interested industry players on a new product, and Stuart, the guy who was set to deliver it, got stuck on a train in Birmingham, and he wasn't there to do the presenting. So that's situation. You're just setting the context of the answer that you're going to give. Next is task. So what was required of you? What was it that you were trying to accomplish? So it was my responsibility to find an alternative so that it didn't reflect badly on the company and we didn't lose this great opportunity. So that's your task, T for task. An activity is what you actually did to accomplish the task. So, for example, I spoke to the event organizers to find out if they could change the running order. They agreed, so we bought ourselves some time that way. I contacted Susan, another member of the team, who really could step in on it. She agreed to drop what she was doing, and she just headed over to the event to cover for the missing Stuart. So you were quick thinking, you covered all the bases, you got the organizers to change the time, and then you found a replacement speaker for the event. And so then your result is what actually came out of it. What concrete results came from your efforts. So what did you affect? Well, you affected a positive relationship with the organizers and several people at the event who were very impressed with the replacement speaker and Stuart, who did eventually show up the last 15 minutes. And you got actually some paid business out of that presentation. So that is sharing with the employer a little bit about what it is you actually accomplished, what your contribution was, and why it was important to the company, and why you're proud of that. So if you can, again, approach your common interview questions with that method in mind, and also, writing down the answers as you go so that you can edit it, then I think you're going to be a lot more successful in being able to answer the common interview questions. And I know you've probably heard these are the most common ones, and I know a lot of people, when I start working with them, they think these are it, really, because they've heard these before. I guess they're so touted in the news or on the articles of career sites and so forth that everybody seems to know about them. But some are, tell me about yourself, What are your greatest strengths? What are your weaknesses or something you have to work on? And where do you see yourself in 5 years? And those are very common questions. And employers will very often ask them. So you might be sitting there thinking, well, I know the answer to that. Well, I bet you don't. I would like to hear your answer right now, and I'd be happy to call you up and listen to your answer right now. And if you can answer all of those without any practice, actually writing out the answers in a way that is going to impress me, then kudos to you, but I don't think so. It hasn't happened yet. People do often think that they're so simple and easy that, oh, they have that in the bank. And really, you need to write those answers out. And again, use that STAR method to really flesh out your answers and be able to answer those simple, common questions in a way that the employer is going to be impressed, because that's really what you're trying to do in an interview. You're trying to win the employer over and convince him or her that you're the person for the job, right? So you want to put your best foot forward and do that. And while we're talking about that too, one thing I did not mention earlier that is very important all the way through always to do as you're preparing your answers for interview questions is to be positive. Always put your positive foot forward. Always couch all answers in a positive way. Don't even use a negative word, because if an employer even hears a negative word, they're going to just grasp a hold of that and build a whole nest around it, and you won't be hired, because people don't want to be around somebody that's negative. And even if you didn't intend to be, sometimes it's the smallest things that can really keep you from getting hired. So just practice being positive and answering positively, and that is really going to help you if you can do that. Of course, besides writing them down and editing them and reworking them, you really want to also practice the answers out loud. You want to practice it in front of a mirror a few times. And I know you're rolling your eyes. You don't want to do that. Nobody does. But it really will help. And, it'll help you remind yourself to smile. It'll give you clues and things that you need to work on. And then after that, I want you to practice with somebody in person and get their feedback. Get another person's opinion. If you don't have somebody that you can just tap to do that with you, there's plenty of people out there like myself who would be happy to do a session or two of interview practice and give you some concrete and objective feedback. It doesn't cost that much, and it's well worth it. Trust me, it'll really boost your confidence. And then finally, closer to the interview, when you actually have one, you'll want to practice in your actual interview attire and really do a dry run in person in your attire with somebody if possible, because that will really, again, just help you to feel more confident and boost your self-esteem a little bit. Two of the lists of common interview questions that I typically do use with my clients, and again, I can't stress this enough, during the job search process. This isn't, when you get an interview, this is, well, you're job searching, you should be practicing these common interview questions. And two that I do provide are 10 Interview Questions Decoded by Careerbuilder, and again, I'll include a link on the information that's posted online, and The Best Interview Prep Tool Ever, again by Careerealism. And those are two really good tools that I use. I usually start out with the 10 Interview Questions Decoded, because I think it does a pretty good job of explaining what the employer is really asking, what they're looking for when they ask these questions. And then the Best Interview Prep Tool puts a little different spin on it and asks you a few harder questions. So I like to do them in that order, and I'd recommend that you do the same. So just in general, when you're answering the questions, besides keeping the STAR method in mind, which you certainly want to do, because that's going to, again, make sure that you're giving a well thought out, deep but not lengthy answer, is you want to answer the question in a way that the employer wants, so that you make sure you understand what the employer is getting at and give them that answer. Not just like, oh, check, here's the answer to that. That's not going to get you anywhere during an interview. Again, always be positive. Don't ramble. Keep your answers concise and focused. If you have a problem rambling, you want to practice more in person and or on the telephone with somebody, so that you can really practice limiting that tendency to ramble. And you might even start practicing not doing that in your regular everyday speech to make it easier. Smile. Breathe. Focusing on your breathing can help you avoid saying and sighing, and really just make sure that your brain has some oxygen going to it in general, which helps you think. So you want to make sure and breathe regularly, and do not doodle or fidget, and don't slouch back in your chair. That is, those things are just annoying, distracting, or give a bad impression to the employer. So you don't want to do any of those things. So just to recap real quickly on the common interview questions and practicing those, you want to start your practice well ahead of time while you're job searching before you actually get called for an interview. Keep the STAR method in mind when you're answering the questions to make sure that you're answering in a detailed and meaningful way, that the employer can really get a sense of who you are and why you're the person that they should hire. Write and edit your answers initially, and then practice on the phone or in person with somebody. And finally, when you actually have an interview, do a dry run in your interview outfit ahead of time. That really will boost your confidence, and you should practice regularly, once a week or so. If you're job searching, you want to really keep on top of this and keep fresh and really know that you have these basics nailed down, so that when it comes time for a real interview, you can focus on company-specific answers to questions, because that's going to be a whole other set of questions that you're going to be looking at and want to be ready for. So if you get these common interview questions nailed ahead of time, you're going to be able to focus on those tougher, even more meaningful, company-focused questions and answers. And again, I'll include the resources online for you when I upload this. But I do hope that you will access the free resources I have online in general through jobsearchfortherestofus.com. My website is life-works.info, and I have links on there to other sites like my LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook. I hope you connect with me. I look forward to it, and you can always subscribe to my paperly newsletter as well, and you can find that on my website as well, and my LinkedIn, I believe. So I will make sure to post all of these for you, and look forward to seeing you next time for tip number 2 in interview nuts and bolts. And thanks for joining me. It's been great, and I look forward to seeing you next time.